Exposed, 12 shocking years of deception unraveled my incredible journey to heartwarming revenge. Emily Parker, a dedicated nurse and single mother of two, stood in the hospital's dimly lit corridor, surrounded by sterile walls and the faint beeping of machines. 12 years of heartache and betrayal washed over her as she pressed her hand against her patient's shoulder. Each carefully chosen word transformed her own pain into comfort. "You're stronger than you know," she whispered, the truth of her statement hanging heavy in the air. That same strength felt as fragile as the porcelain doll her daughter had clung to when she couldn't understand why her father had left. In the small town of Maplewood, secrets swirled like leaves in the autumn wind. Emily felt the whispers of judgment, neighbors speculating about her financial struggles, co-workers snickering at her persistence. She had fought long and hard to make a life for her children since Jack, her husband, had walked away, lured by promises of easy riches and a life unconstrained by the shackles of responsibility. It felt like betrayal burnt in her chest, yet she remained resilient. But today, the weight of the world pressed down even more. The hospital, the very lifeblood of this town, was in jeopardy of closing. Panic hovered like a specter, and as Emily comforted her patient, her heart raced with the fear of losing her job, her home, everything. Just as Emily prepared to leave, she caught wind of something extraordinary: a rally on Main Street to save the hospital. The thought ignited a flicker of hope within her, rekindling the dreams she thought she had buried beneath the weight of her struggles. Her heart swelled as she pictured her community coming together: farmers, teachers, shopkeepers, and she felt compelled to join them. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Emily dove headfirst into this cause, rallying her neighbors, a darker truth began to unfurl. A wealthy developer was behind the closure, a man named Reed Hall, with eyes set on siphoning Maplewood's resources for personal gain. To her horror, whispers from the town revealed that Reed was none other than her ex-husband's new partner in crime. Her heart sank as she grappled with the realization that this man, who had betrayed her once, had returned to haunt her again. Friends and family questioned her motives, drawing lines in the sand and forcing her to choose between loyalty to her roots and the fight for justice. The web of corruption began to entangle her, yet she could feel the fire of determination rising within her. She wouldn't just fight for her children's future, she would fight for the very soul of Maplewood. As the day of the rally approached, tension twisted in the air. Standing at the forefront, with her children bright-eyed behind her, she prepared to confront not just a community issue, but the very man who had shattered her once idyllic life. But the question loomed: would exposing Reed's schemes break her family apart even more? Would their town withstand the truth? Emily's heart raced, caught between hope and the fear of losing everything she'd built for her children. The stakes had never been higher, and she was ready, standing at the edge of a confrontation that could change their lives forever. The sun shone brightly on the day of the rally, its rays reflecting off the banners and signs that decorated Main Street. Emily stood at the forefront, feeling the warmth of the light juxtaposed against the chill of anticipation swirling in her stomach. Her children, Mia and Jake, held hands beside her, their innocent faces painted with excitement. They were too young to understand the full weight of what was happening, yet Emily felt their unwavering support strengthen her resolve. As townsfolk began to gather, a buzz filled the air. Small conversations sprinkled with laughter buzzed and bubbled around her like the fizz of soda. Yet, as she glanced around, the bigger picture loomed in her mind. This rally wasn't just about saving the hospital, it was a fight for the whole community, its values, its identity. Emily blinked away the tears that threatened to spill over. She drew a deep breath, focusing on the task at hand. Together, we can make a difference. She shouted, her voice surging over the crowd. The energy ignited as cheers erupted around her, sending a wave of adrenaline through her veins. She felt more than just a single mother now, she was a warrior, fighting for the love of her children, their future, and the community she had cherished. But then, as if fate was testing her resolve, a shadow fell across the crowd. Reed Hall strode toward her with steely confidence, flanked by his expensive suits and an air of authority that made the ground quiver beneath her. She felt a pit form in her stomach, but she refused to buckle under the weight of his presence. "Emily Parker," he called out, his voice dripping with condescension. "I commend your enthusiasm, but your efforts are in vain. Nothing can stop progress." With each word, he painted himself as both the hero and the villain, and Emily could see the glimmer of doubt creeping into the eyes of some townsfolk. Progress at what cost? Emily snapped back, her voice steadier than she felt. "Your so-called progress involves tearing apart this community for your own gain. We deserve better." The words clawed their way out of her throat, each syllable a plea for justice. Reed smirked, and something about that smile sent chills down her spine. "Better? You think saving a hospital will save you from your life? You're a single mother fighting against change. You really think you can take me on?" The crowd tensed, unsure of what would happen next. Emily's heart raced, each beat echoing Reed's sneering expression in her mind. Did she really have what it took to stand against him? A voice from the back called out, "We stand with Emily." The words bounced off the walls of the buildings, rallying others who echoed the sentiment. One by one, people stepped forward, holding signs that read "Save Our Hospital." And Maplewood stands united. Hope blossomed inside of Emily. She felt the community around her, the strength of her neighbors, the warmth of their shared purpose. But the moment was fleeting. She hadn't even begun to scratch the surface of what was to come. Reed's grin widened, a hunter sizing up his prey. "What if I were to show an even darker secret?" he challenged, a glint of malice in his eyes. Emily's breath caught. What did he mean? Just as she braced herself for whatever bombshell he was about to drop, the sky darkened slightly. The tension felt palpable, as though something larger than the fight before her hung in the air. What could he possibly have on her, and was this just the beginning of a battle she could have never anticipated? Emily steeled herself. She wouldn't falter now. The stakes had never been higher, and they were all counting on her to face the storm. As Reed moved closer, the weight of his accusation waiting to be exposed, Emily could feel everything she built trembling beneath her. Would she have to sacrifice more than she had bargained for? Would this be the end of her fight for justice, or just the beginning of a more profound revelation? Before Emily could grasp the heaviness of Reed's words, he stepped forward, taking control of the moment. The once empowered crowd felt the shift, a collective uncertainty washing over them like a wave. Panic buzzed in the atmosphere, obscuring the rally's purpose. "Have you ever wondered what happens behind closed doors, Emily?" Reed's voice cut through the crowd. He leaned closer, a predator savoring his prey's fear. "Your precious hospital is just one piece of a very complicated puzzle." But that's not the worst part. Emily's heart hammered in her chest. What secrets could he possibly uncover? Worries flared in her mind, thoughts of her children learning something they shouldn't, the possibility of her vulnerabilities laid bare. "Let me remind you," Reed continued, its tone now low and sinister, "about the funding you received last year. Money that vanished without a trace. The community deserves to know why." Gasps echoed around her, rippling through the crowd like electricity. Emily felt herself recoil, confusion and fear swirling just under the surface. How had her actions come under such scrutiny? "Let us not pretend this isn't about you, Emily. You are the face of this crusade, but how can you lead when your past shadows your present?" Reed's smirk widened at her growing anguish. The onlookers shifted, some whispering among themselves, others glancing back at Emily with concern in their eyes. She could feel the heat of their gaze, both supportive and questioning. "Stop this!" she shouted, her voice trembling but defiant. "You're trying to tear apart everything we've built. This isn't about me, it's about saving lives. You can't weaponize our community against each other. But Reed was relentless. Oh, but Emily, this is exactly about you. When you've had secrets, it's only a matter of time before they come back to bite you. He paused, letting the tension grow, the weight of his words pressing heavily on her chest. Just imagine what happens if those closest to you find out the truth. She would not let Reed break her spirit. Not now, not ever. Drawing from the depths of her resolve, she forced herself to match his gaze, feeling the strength of the crowd ready to support her. She could sense them drawing together, a collective heartbeat of defiance. There are no secrets here. I am standing for my community, against your greed. Emily replied, her voice growing more assured. You may try to intimidate me, but I know the truth behind your lies. I will not let fear silence my voice. I admire your fire, Reed said, nodding, an eerie calm washing over him. But take heed, this town's trust can be as fragile as crystal. I'd hate to see you shatter under the pressure. Determination rippled through Emily. She would sift through this turmoil, look to hope instead of despair. They were not just fighting for a hospital, they were fighting for their community's heart, a unity forged from shared struggles and dreams. Suddenly, a familiar face pushed through the crowd, exuding an intimidating presence. It was Rachel, the head nurse from the hospital. She clutched at her sign, "Don't you dare." And eyed Reed with steely determination. You are the real danger here, Reed. Toxicity spreads, you know. But we can heal together as a community, and you won't break us. With Rachel's words, a shift began within the crowd. Emily could see heads nodding, resolve igniting anew. But Reed's eyes darkened. He couldn't be outmatched. And in that moment, Emily knew the battle was far from over. They were only at the beginning. An unforeseen storm was brewing on the horizon. What desperate move would Reed make next? Emily's pulse quickened. The stakes were rising, and she couldn't help but wonder what he still held over them, what darkness lingered beneath the surface. The tension in the air was electric. Emily's heart raced as she scanned the crowd, the anxious faces mirroring her own uncertainty. This was supposed to be a day of unity, a rally filled with hope and collective strength. But now, Reed had thrown a dark cloud over it all. Don't you feel the fear, Emily? Reed challenged, his voice layered with menace. It's like a thick fog that closes in, isn't it? What if your community finds out that your hands have dirt on them? The crowd was trapped in a liminal space of confusion and concern. Murmurs rose and fell. A few people turned away, their loyalty to Emily wavers, while others shot steely glares at Reed, refusing to let his venomous words take root. Emily felt the mix of anger and fear surging within her. She couldn't go back now, she couldn't allow this man to tear apart the fabric of their community. But she wouldn't just fight back, she had to expose him. Every single person in this community has a right to know the truth. She shouted, her voice piercing the hearts of the crowd. And I'm not the only one with secrets, Reed. He was momentarily taken aback. The crowd's whispers turned into shouts of support for Emily. Hope ignited again. This wasn't just about her anymore, it was about truth and resilience. If they were to face Reed, they had to confront their own truths too. Do you know what lies behind your facade? She pressed on, her determination rising. When I started working at the hospital, I didn't just take a job. I became part of this community's heartbeat. And I've fought to keep it alive. A ripple of collective resolve flowed through the crowd. They began chanting her name, the rhythm pulsing like a warm embrace, giving her strength. Reed's smirk faltered slightly, but Emily could see the smoldering rage beneath it. He stepped forward again, eyes sharp as he spoke low, "Oh, this is charming, Emily. But let us not forget that the darker the shadows, the brighter the light needs to be to pierce through them. Just remember, the truth can be a double-edged sword." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Emily could sense that their momentum was balancing on a precarious edge. What truth do you speak of, Reed? When will you stop hiding behind yours? Behind the curtains lies the past, my dear. He hissed back, his hands trembling as he gestured animatedly. What do you think happens when I unveil the whispers of your past? Like a beautiful painting, Emily. Would you want to see the brushstrokes that create an ugly picture? The atmosphere grew thick with tension, threatening to choke off their newfound solidarity. Emily knew her next words had to cut through the fear like a lighthouse shinning in a storm. You may think you can control the narrative, she retorted, her voice rising above the chaos, but this isn't just about me. You underestimating our community's strength will be your downfall. We will stand united against your lies and manipulation. A collective cheer erupted, arms raised to the sky like the branches of a strong oak tree. Emily felt the warmth of support envelop her. Rachel's sign waving proudly beside her reignited the spirit in Emily's heart. But this wasn't over. As Emily looked back at Reed, his expression darkened into something sinister. It was clear he wouldn't surrender easily. If anything, his eyes spoke of lingering threats, veiled in deceit. What comes next will reveal much more than you think. The worst is yet to come, he taunted, his voice echoing ominously. Fueled by a new determination and fury, Emily took a step closer, not backing down. Let it come, because together we'll rise above it all. The crowd erupted in a deafening roar, and Emily felt the energy soaring around her. Determined but uncertain, she could only wonder what Reed's next move would be and how deeply it would affect their strife for truth. What secrets was Reed hiding, and just how far would he go to protect them? The battle had shifted, but the war was far from done. Emily felt the adrenaline coursing through her veins as the crowd's cheers resonated like thunder against her skin. This was a turning point. The turbulence and fear that moments ago threatened to suffocate her now transformed into an overwhelming sense of purpose. She wasn't just defending herself, she was rallying an entire community who had stood silently for too long. But as the cheers lifted her spirit, Reed's dark presence loomed. His eyes glinted with a predatory hunger, assessing the crowd and calculating his next move. The atmosphere shifted again, a cold breeze choking the warmth of unity they'd built together. Emily knew Reed was not done, that flicker of malice in his gaze promised more than just words. Let us not pretend this is a fairy tale, shall we? Reed said, his voice slicing through the genuine excitement of the crowd. Every fairy tale has its villain. And every villain has their secrets. Tension crackled in the air. Testimonies of strength shifted to nervous glances. What could Reed possibly reveal? A few frightened murmurs echoed among the gathered masses, painting doubt across once hopeful faces. Emily's heart sank for just a moment. Shut up, Reed. Someone shouted from the back, a brave voice that spurred a few others to follow suit. The chants of support for Emily began again, filling the air with purpose, igniting the spark of hope that Reed had tried to smother. In that moment, Emily felt the fear relate to her, like an old friend who didn't come knocking for a visit but took residence inside her. What do you want from us? She demanded, stepping forward, unwilling to let uncertainty take root. You're nothing without our fears to feed you. Reed chuckled darkly, shaking his head. You underestimate the power of fear, Emily. It reveals truths you're not ready to face. Then let us face it together, she replied defiantly, the warmth of the crowd encouraging her strength. Amid the supportive chants, Emily caught a glimpse of Rachel, her friend's expression hopeful and fierce. What happened here today wouldn't just shape Emily's future but could redefine their entire community's narrative. Today was about unveiling the truth, not just for her, but for all those who felt lost under Reed's hold. Reed, you think you know me? You think you can intimidate me? I'm not hiding anymore. Emily's voice rang out, filled with a conviction that seemed to echo off the walls surrounding them. If there's dirt to be dug, let us dig it together. Let us show this community what really lies beneath the surface of your lies. For a moment, silence fell in the midst of the crowd. Everyone held their breath, waiting on Reed's response. His sinister smile, however, only deepened. "It's fascinating, really," Reed said coolly. "You think strength comes from the truth? What if I told you there's more to the story than you imagine? There are pieces of this puzzle that, once revealed, might shatter everything you believe." His words shook through the crowd, a palpable unrest spreading like wildfire. A shaky exhale escaped Emily as she tried to grasp the implications of his taunt. "What do you mean?" she pressed, her heart pounding in her chest, as dread seeped into her thoughts. Would he divulge secrets that could hurt those she loved? "Just wait, I'll reveal it all soon enough. Truth always finds its way, doesn't it?" Reed replied, turning to leave with a precision that made Emily's skin crawl. The crowd began to disperse, murmurs of confusion and worry swirling like leaves in the wind. Emily stood still for a brief moment, the reality of Reed's threats gnawing at her insides. What did he know that could shake the foundation of everything they'd built? Rachel squeezed her hand, grounding her for just a second. "We won't let him win, Emily. He can't scare us forever." But just how deeply rooted were Reed's secrets? What would it take to bring them to light while protecting their community? The rally may have ignited a candle of hope, but as the shadows grew longer, Emily feared those flames could easily be extinguished. Would they be able to weather the storm that Reed promised, or was this only the beginning of something much darker? The air buzzed with uncertainty as people trickled away, the earlier fervor quickly dissipating. Emily remained in place, swept up in a whirlwind of jagged thoughts. She searched the crowd for familiar faces, for strength, but the cheers had faded, replaced by whispers laced with doubt. What could Reed possibly have on her? The chill of his words clung to her, wrapping around her like a shroud. "Emily, we need to regroup," Rachel urged, her eyes darting around nervously. "We can't let him manipulate us like this." Emily nodded, the weight of the moment pressing heavily on her shoulders. The community that had stood with her moments ago now felt fragile, as if they could crumble at any moment. She had ignited hope, but Reed's taunting presence had cast a long shadow. "Do you think he really knows something?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. "Something that could hurt us?" "I don't know," Rachel admitted, her brow furrowed in thought. "But we can't let fear dictate our actions. We need to be ready for whatever he throws at us." As they began walking, Emily kept her gaze ahead, focusing on the path that wound through the park, now eerily silent. The trees stood tall and imposing, their leaves rustling like whispers from the ghosts of the past. Each step felt heavier, burdened by the weight of Reed's ominous promise. "Emily," Rachel said suddenly, breaking the silence. "What if we dug our own truths first? What if we found out everything we could about him? Knowledge is power." The idea sparked in Emily's mind, igniting a flicker of determination. "You're right. We shouldn't just sit around waiting for him to strike. We need to take the offensive." They began brainstorming questions to ask, places to search, and people to contact. The energy shifted, once consumed by fear, they were now fueled by a fire of intent. Emily could almost taste the thrill of discovery, both for the sake of her community and her own sanity. As they gathered a small group of trusted friends, the familiar camaraderie returned. They strategized, drawing up a plan like warriors preparing for battle. Emily felt empowered, surrounded by people who believed in her fight. The night was falling, but an inner light began to flicker, illuminating their path forward. But even in their collective resolve, nagging doubts clawed at Emily's mind. Reed's words echoed incessantly, what pieces of truth could shatter everything. The questions created ripples of anxiety, but she pushed them aside, focusing instead on the hope brewing within her. After hours of planning, they dispersed, each person promising to research, dig deep, and report back. Emily felt the adrenaline return, not from fear, but from the strength of connection and purpose. As she locked up her front door that night, she glanced up at the stars, vast and unyielding, just like her determination. However, she couldn't shake the feeling that Reed was, in some way, always just one step behind. Was he watching? Waiting? The realization settled like a stone in her stomach. As Emily prepared for bed, exhaustion tugged at her eyelids, but sleep evaded her. Instead, she spent the hours replaying every conversation, every interaction, trying to piece together the thread Reed might use to unravel them all. When the dawn peeked through her window, she resolved to take her fight further. She wasn't going to falter now, the stakes had risen, and she had to outsmart the villain. What would they uncover about Reed? Would the truth truly turn out to be darker than they imagined? Before Emily could let her own doubts spiral, the thought of the community they were fighting for filled her with resolve. Together, they would stand against the darkness. And as she stepped outside into the brightening morning, she felt a surge of hope, but also an undeniable chill beneath her skin. Would this path lead her towards liberation or into a far deeper trap? The quest for answers beckoned her closer to the edge. The sun broke through the clouds, casting a golden glow over Emily's neighborhood. Yet, her heart raced. Uncertainty marched alongside her like a shadow. She couldn't let that consume her today. Today was about action. Determined to start her day, Emily took a deep breath and went for a jog. The rhythm of her footsteps on the pavement matched the pounding of her heart, amplifying her sense of purpose. Each step pushed her doubts away, even if just for a moment. She ran past the familiar houses, knowing she couldn't keep running from Reed's looming threat. Today, she would begin to confront it head-on. After her run, a shower cleared her mind, and she settled at her kitchen table with her laptop open and notepad at the ready. It was time to dig. She typed Reed's name into her search engine, and the wealth of information that flooded the screen felt like a tidal wave crashing over her. There were articles, blogs, and even local forums discussing his prior ventures, some positive, some negative. Each click felt like breaking a new barrier. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, and with every sentence she read, her conviction grew. She couldn't hide behind fear anymore. Then, she stumbled upon something unexpected: a comment in an online forum discussing Reed's business dealings. "He's not who he says he is," it read. Always looking for a way to manipulate people. The words hung heavily in the air, and Emily's heart quickened. Could she use this to her advantage? Just then, her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was Rachel. "Hey. We were trying to meet up at the cafe. You ready?" "Yeah. I'll be there in 15. Emily felt excitement bubble within her, urging her to share her discoveries. Information was brewing, and she was determined to share the good news. As she arrived at the cafe, the smell of fresh coffee wafted through the air, quickening her heart rate. She spotted her friends gathered at a table, their faces a mix of hope and unease. As she joined them, she couldn't hide her enthusiasm. "You guys, I found some really interesting stuff on Reed." Rachel leaned in, eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Tell us." With each new revelation about Reed's past, the atmosphere in the cafe shifted. They were not just talking about supporting Emily anymore, they were discussing their strategy. "We need to turn the narrative. If we can highlight his questionable methods, maybe we can counter his threats," one friend suggested, and the group nodded in agreement. Just when Emily thought the discussion was headed toward a productive climax, a familiar face slipped through the door: Reed himself. He moved with an air of confidence that made Emily's stomach churn. "Just when I thought I could hide," she mumbled under her breath, feeling the weight of his presence across the room. Did he come here to taunt her again? Reed's gaze swept across the cafe until it landed on Emily. A small, smug smile crept across his lips. Emily's resolve hardened. She wouldn't let him intimidate her. "Stay cool," Rachel whispered, sensing the tension. As Reed made his way to the counter, Emily felt the eyes of her friends on her, urging her not to back down. What if he knew she was digging into his life? Would he retaliate? Her pulse quickened, caught in the balance between fear and the need for truth. She exchanged glances with Rachel, and in that moment, they both silently vowed to stand strong. Reed might have the upper hand now, but they had the power of knowledge. "Let us get started on our plan." His smile won tea last once we pull out the truth, Emily said, her voice steady, grounding herself in conviction. As she turned back towards Reed, something clicked in her mind. Could this face-off be the catalyst they needed? What would happen next? Would Emily's resolve and knowledge finally turn the tide in her favor? The answer loomed ahead. A battle for truth had begun. Emily's heart raced as she kept her gaze locked on Reed across the cafe. She felt a strange mix of fear and adrenaline. Could she really confront him? The tension in the air buzzed like a live wire. "Emily." Rachel's voice brought her back. "Focus. We need to keep our heads clear." Reed was now waiting for his order, casually looking around, but there was something predatory in the way he scanned the room. He knew he had an edge. But not for long, Emily thought. She had information now. "Okay, here's the plan," Emily started, trying to suppress the quivering in her hands. "We need to gather more people. Those comments online. They're a starting point. We can mobilize others who have experienced what we've gone through with him." "Absolutely," another friend chimed in. "We can create a space for people to share their stories. If we get enough witnesses, we could present a united front." The words filled the air with energy, and Emily's confidence soared. The cafe, once oppressive and full of Reed's looming presence, began to feel like a launching pad. She envisioned the community rallying together, a force against Reed's deceit. "Let us set up a meeting. We need somewhere more private to discuss our next steps," Rachel suggested. "Somewhere he can't just walk in." "Great idea," Emily said, nodding in agreement. "Let us take it to my house. We can brainstorm more and get organized." Just as they began to outline their plans, the fateful click of the cafe door creaking open drew everyone's attention. Reed, now with a coffee in hand, made his way toward their table. The camaraderie fizzled as he approached, his expression a mask of practiced friendliness. "Emily," he said, voice dripping with false warmth. "What a surprise to see you here." Her stomach twisted, but she mirrored his smile, keeping her voice steady. "Just enjoying some time with friends, Reed." The way he leaned in slightly felt invasive, as if he were reading her hidden thoughts. "You seem different," he noted, eyes narrowing as if he could smell her resolve through the air. "What do you mean?" Emily replied, forcing her voice to remain light while her mind raced through her defense strategies. "Oh, I don't know," he shrugged, flashing that insidious smile again. "You just seem a bit more animated. Are you up to something?" The room felt charged as whispers spilled from nearby tables, clearly picking up on the tension. This was at the moment Emily had dreaded, yet she felt a flicker of power surging through her, a reminder of her purpose. She had to stay calm. "Just the usual." "You know how it is," Emily said, her voice laced with a nonchalance she didn't feel. Reed's eyes sharpened, his confident demeanor faltering for just a second. "Well, don't get too carried away, Emily." He turned to leave but paused. "You wouldn't want to fall into a rabbit hole you can't climb out of." As he walked away, the barista called out to him, offering a smile that almost seemed supportive. But Reed didn't need anyone's support. He thrived on manipulation. A breath left Emily's lungs as her friends looked at her, wide-eyed with concern. "Are you okay?" Rachel asked, her brows knitted. "I am," Emily said, solidifying her stance. That was just a warning shot. They gathered their things, and as the group headed for the door, Emily felt empowered rather than intimidated. She was building a team, a small rebellion against a force that had long silenced her. "Let us go home and start planning. We'll show him that the truth is worth fighting for," Emily declared, the resolve in her voice palpable. With plans swirling in her mind, she realized they were just getting started. And while she worried about Reed's reaction, a new fire burned within her, a will to uncover the truth at all costs. But what other secrets lurked in Reed's past? As the door swung shut behind them, another question nagged at Emily: was he truly as powerful as he appeared to be, or were cracks beginning to show in his carefully crafted facade? The next chapter of their confrontation awaited her. Once they arrived at Emily's house, the air buzzed with nervous energy. The group settled in the cozy living room, a safe haven surrounded by familiar mementos of happier times. Emily felt a thrill at the thought of changing the narrative, bringing light to the shadows in Reed's actions. She turned to her friends, their faces reflecting a mix of resolve and anxiety. "All right, let's kick this into gear," she said, her voice firm. "We need to map out exactly what we want to do." Rachel handed Emily a stack of papers, the printing of the online comments they'd gathered, threads filled with tales of manipulation and heartache. "These are our weapons," she said, her eyes wide with intensity. "Each one a story that can shake the very ground beneath him." Emily nodded, flipping through the pages thoughtfully. They had all felt Reed's darkness in some way. "We need to do this right. We can't let him twist the truth. He's been doing that for too long," she stated, her voice gaining strength with every word. They began to brainstorm, sharing their own experiences with Reed, recounting the moments when his charming exterior shattered into something scarier. Each story added weight to their mission, binding them tighter as a group. "So, what's the plan?" Jen asked, leaning forward, her excitement palpable. "Do we host a public forum? Share these stories online? Create a petition?" Emily tapped her finger to her chin, considering the options. A public forum could attract attention, but it might also drive him to retaliate before we're ready. "We need witnesses first, a solid group of people who can confirm these behaviors, people he can't charm or intimidate." "Is there anyone else you can think of?" Rachel interjected, her voice low. "Anyone who has interacted with him on a deeper level?" Emily's heart sank for a moment. Memories of Reed's former friends flickered in her mind, people who too had been caught in his web but were now scattered. There's Mark, he used to be close to Reed. But I haven't seen him in ages. He might be too scared to talk. The group fell silent, the weight of uncertainty enveloping them. Reed's reach had been extensive, and Emily knew they couldn't just wish away the fear. But with every spoken word among her friends, Emily felt the steadying warmth of support. "Let's reach out to him," Rachel suggested, injecting a sense of urgency into the air. "What do we have to lose? We can't keep letting Reed control our lives." "Agreed," Emily replied, her resolve solidifying. She grabbed her phone, determined to send a message to Mark, a lifeline to someone who might stand against Reed. Her thumbs hovered over the screen, hesitation flickering through her. What if he doesn't respond, or worse, what if he alerts Reed? "Then we adapt," Jen said, folding her arms. "We all know Reed, we know his games. We can't let fear hold us back anymore." Emily looked up, her friends' faces painted with determination. "You're right. We've got to move forward. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about anyone he has hurt, anyone he has made feel less than what they are." As she typed, her heart pounded in her chest. Each letter felt like a leap into the unknown, a chance to pull back the curtain and expose the truth. Just then, Emily's phone buzzed. A reply. She swiped to open it and read Mark's message: "I know things. I've been waiting for someone to say something. Tell me when and where." A surge of hope coursed through her. It was a crack in Reed's wall, a sign that the rebellion was gaining strength. Maybe they could really do this. Feeling lighter, Emily glanced around the room, her friends' faces glowing with eagerness. This is the start of something big. We aren't just fighting against Reed, we're fighting for ourselves. But as they plotted their next steps, a thought nagged at Emily. Reed had always been unpredictable. What if he caught wind of their gathering forces? What would he do to protect his secrets? As if in response to her silent dread, a sharp knock echoed through the house. They froze, glancing nervously at one another. Was it just a neighbor, or could it be someone delivering a warning? Emily took a deep breath, bracing herself. "I'll check," she said, already feeling the electric tension in the air. The truth had to come out. But the question now loomed larger than ever: was she ready for how Reed would respond? Emily opened the door to find a familiar face standing on her porch. Mark, looking both anxious and relieved. He stepped in, and the tension in the air crackled with potential. "Thanks for coming," Emily said, her heart racing. She motioned him towards the living room where her friends were gathered, eyes wide with curiosity. "Yeah, well, I couldn't turn down the chance to finally talk about this," Mark replied, his voice a mix of apprehension and guarded hope. The moment he sat down, they launched into questions, each eager to hear what he knew about Reed. Mark's gaze flitted around the room, the weight of memories heavy on his shoulders. "I've seen him change, you know. The way he manipulates people. It's like he has this power over them," he began, his brow furrowed in remembrance. "When I was working with him, he was smooth. But when he didn't get what he wanted, well, let's just say his charm faded really fast." "Do you have any specific examples?" Rachel pressed, leaning forward. "That company he started last year. He cut corners. I was there when we rushed reports to make things look good for investors. But those numbers, he just faked them. If anyone actually looked closely, they'd see it," Mark explained, his voice gaining strength as he recalled those moments. Emily felt adrenaline surge through her. This was the kind of information they needed to bring Reed down. As Mark spoke, a flicker of excitement ignited among the group. They were not just gathering stories, they were building an arsenal. "Mark, would you be willing to speak out publicly? If we can present a united front, it might deter Reed from attacking us," Emily proposed, her heart thundering in her chest. Mark hesitated, glancing down. "I am afraid Reed will retaliate. He's not the sort to take threats lightly. I've seen him ruin lives. What if we had a network? If we multiplied these stories together, it could cripple him," Emily insisted. "You have to realize, he's already causing harm, we just need to expose the truth." The room was silent, tension hanging thickly in the air. Finally, Mark looked up. "Okay. I'll speak out. But we need to be cautious. Reed has eyes everywhere." Excitement flooded the room as they began drafting a plan. Emily felt hope blossom. They were rallying together, becoming more than just individuals, they were a community. After hours of planning, with coffee cups drained and energy surging through them, they had a clear strategy. They'd organize a public forum inviting others victims of Reed's manipulation. They'd create a compelling narrative of solidarity. Just as they were wrapping up, Emily's phone buzzed again. The screen lit up with a message from an unlikely source: "Reed. I wouldn't tempt fate if I were you." The air grew colder, all eyes on Emily as she read it aloud. Fear flashed across the faces of her friends, but Emily felt something else: anger. "Spread fear all you want, Reed," Emily said defiantly, meeting the gaze of her friends who mirrored her strength. "We're not backing down." As night fell and the meeting wrapped up, a renewed sense of purpose fueled their spirits. Emily watched as her friends shared smiles, whispered plans, and the seeds of courage sprouted anew. But deep down, a shadow lingered. What would Reed's next move be? His words gnawed at her, a reminder that the battle was far from over. Despite hope's glow surrounding her, the fear of the unknown loomed silently. Was this truly just the beginning? In the coming days, would they face consequences for their challenge against Reed, or would unity and truth ultimately prevail? The next morning, Emily awoke with determination. She stood by the window, sunlight pouring in, illuminating the path ahead. This was more than a fight for a hospital, it was a fight for their lives and integrity. As she got ready to meet with the community, she turned back towards her home, a small smile creeping onto her face. They had all each other now. Together, They would shine a light into the shadows Reed created, unearthing truths buried beneath layers of betrayal, a truth that could heal. With one final glance towards the sun-soaked landscape, she headed out, resolute. This was their moment. Would they stand strong enough to unite against the shadows and reclaim their community? Only time would tell, but deep inside, Emily felt that they were ready. They were no longer isolated. They were a movement, a spark of hope igniting in Maplewood. And as she stepped out, she could almost hear the whispers of every voice long silenced now rising in unity, echoing against the uncertainty of the fight ahead. Do not miss this moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for this incredible journey. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this transformative conclusion. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who needed to see this incredible fight. Now is the time to act, and only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.